with, he wants to inflect with, who can't decide which young child out there he wants as his personal plaything for a week or two. And a friend of mine one time got very hostile because he said, "John, you're talking about imposing religion, Christianity, and law. You're supposed to render under Caesar the things that are Caesar and the things that are God to God." And I said, "You're a little bit confused, my friend, because in this system, we are Caesar. The people are the supreme law of the land. Governments exist by consent of the governed. And by the power of God, they will stay there, and Bill Clinton and his queen will inflict their judgments upon us because we deserve them." Has anybody ever turned over a voter's registration card and actually read the back of it? What does it say? You must be a resident of the United States. You know what United States they're talking about? You know what resident means? You know what domicile means? How it applies in opposition to resident? Resident of the United States, people, is someone who signed a Social Security agreement, gotten their driver's license, and then, by registering to vote, has pledged their property for the error of politicians. In other words, they place a lien on your physical person and all your property when you go down to register to vote. But then we've got to do our public duty. Now, I don't know how many of you knew that or not, but the bottom line again is accept any benefit, privilege, or opportunity, and you lose your rights, and then accept privileges. When you enter into your adhesion contracts, call it Social Security, which apparently Americans would rather have than the security of God's providence. You know, guys get all over my case because I don't have a driver's license. They say, "John, suppose everybody runs around without a driver's license." I said, "Fine, they'd own property for a change." "What do you mean, I own property? My car's paid for out there. I own that." I said, "Really? Well, bring your title over here. Let me look at it. I want to see somebody that really owns the car." So he brings his title over to me, you know. He brings this pretty little pink thing over, lays it there on the table and says, "There it is. Bob, this is pink first. It's not a legal document." And I said, across the top of it, what does it say? Certificate of title. Certificate of title, Bob, is not the title. The title to your car when you first bought it, new, you voluntarily gave up your title when the automobile dealer said, "We'll be glad to, right here, just sign right here, and we'll take care of all the paperwork of registering your property with the state." Right there, just a little small B. And what you just did was you signed away title of your car to the state, which the state holds as surety for your compliance to the Motor Vehicle Code. Isn't it nice? Huh? Isn't it lovely? And he said, "Wait a minute. You mean to tell me I worked for 5 years to pay for that damn station wagon out there, and you're telling me I don't own it?" Well, I'll tell you what. You got about half an hour. Go in here and sit down and read these court decisions and the statutes. Well, people like that only learn the hard way. You see, like the gentleman I was talking to out on the convention floor out here who's been battling the IRS for years, IRS liens for years. He doesn't realize that he gave up his property. And apparently the pain level is not high enough that he's willing to take some kind of drastic action like revoking his Social Security card. rights really worth dying for? Can anyone answer that question? Are they worth dying for? Is there that much uncertainty in the crowd, in the audience? No, I mean, you know, when Henry stands in the House of Burgesses and he says, I know not what course other men may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. He's merely paraphrasing the scriptures in which Joshua says, do as you will, but as for me and my house, we will follow the Lord. Well, again, we're right back in religion again. Well, that's where we get our rights from, people. It's from God. It's not a premise, it's not a theory, it's not a hypothesis. It's an actual, provable, historical fact. I could care less what the university professors are going to tell you. I could care less what the politicians are going to tell you. If you're willing to go back and spend a little bit of time, look at the original sources, you'll find out for yourself that 64% of the Constitution is either reasoned directly from statements made in Deuteronomy or from commentaries on the book of Deuteronomy. That was proven in a 7-year study done by the University of Houston almost 10 years ago. They couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. 15,284 sources. You know, I mean, I've had friends of mine talk all the time about how, you know, God had a hand in the Constitution, but you say, how and in what way? Well, you know, the founding fathers were Christians, but how and what way? What's the connection between the Bible and the Constitution? The connection is the common law. The common law? Ha, yeah, John, that's where a man and woman kind of, you know, they like live together a little bit without benefit of the preacher having said words over them, right? No. Common law marriage is a marriage at law, in which you sought no benefits, privileges, or opportunities from the state. Common law marriages, all marriages in this country down to the latter 1880s and early 1900s were common law marriages. Pastor still said the words, but the couple was issued a certificate of marriage, not a marriage license. No, marriage licenses only came in when people of different races wanted to marry. Now, what is the significance? Roberts v. Roberts, the United States Supreme Court decision, will tell you that when you go down and apply for a marriage license, the state becomes a third party to your marriage. And that, my friends, is why the state can come in and take your children, take your property, can adjudicate in the matters of your divorce in event that such a thing happens, because you voluntarily signed away. You got a license from men. And you gave up the right to a conjugal relationship at law. Now, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why would anybody in their right mind do anything like that? Clearly, we're not in our right minds, are we? Everything's got to have a license attached to it, and that means every time you get a license, you lose a right. And you do it voluntarily. Unknowingly, maybe, but you do it voluntarily. And that's the fundamental problem. Utter and total ignorance of what's going on in the process. And we're ignorant in the second place because we're ignorant of Scripture in the first place. And now I'm going to burn a few people's ears. Because I spent 20 years of my life reading and studying the Scriptures. And I spent over $80,000 in buying source materials. I had 7,000 titles in my library. And I don't have any fiction in my library. And the Lord gave me the privilege of studying for 18 years. And I finally come around to a knowledge and a realization that the common law is biblical law applied. And I say that only because I can establish beyond question that the common law itself was derived from the applications of canon and biblical law by the Christian churches in England in the